welcome back to Kid the Bookworm. In today's video, I'll be doing my book review on Loretta Little Looks Back, so stay tuned. So I was chosen by Hear Our Voices Book Tour to do my opinion in my book review on Loretta Little Looks Back, Three Voices Go Tell It. I'm going to be real with you guys. I just got done with this book, so this is going to be a fresh off memory. But it tells the story of Loretta Little, who is on the cover, her brother Rolly, and her niece Angie B, who is Rolly's daughter. 3 different generations in one book, all in the same city of Ruralville, Mississippi. So it is kind of like a YA historical fiction, and it tells the story between all 3 of them between the times of 1920s to 1960s. So it's more so Loretta is basically talking about her life as a sharecropper's daughter, and basically saying how even though she wanted to be in school with all the rest of her friends, she had to drop out when she was 11 to help the family grow. And during the process, she finds out that she has MS. So she can't do as much as she wants to do to help the family. Not only that, her mother passed away, her father is basically hanging on, and she also has 2 older sisters too that kind of want to break off at the same time have fun. So Loretta, during her time, is trying to be there for the family, but at the same time try to still be the innocence of a little girl. So her family is just getting off slavery, and they're just really going through the sharecropping fields. But then when it gets to Rolly, that's his nickname, his real name is Ronald, Loretta and her older sisters found him basically like in the forest. So he's both what you call like a nighttime baby, where basically like parents who can't care for their child just leave them in like kind of like in like the trees or like the forest somewhere, to where a family will pick them up and raise them, and that's what Loretta's family did, raise him as his own. So when it comes to Rolly, he is between like the 1940s, 1950s. So he is basically just kind of like living off his, living through his sister's eyes, but at the same time trying to live his own. He is definitely in the height of the starting of the Jim Crow era. I love Rolly's because Rolly also talks about Emmett Till. So Emmett Till dies around in this age as well, and he basically just talks about how, in the newspaper, Emmett Till was his age, and he basically cried and cried. But at the same time, he found happiness because he found his future wife, Tess, who at first did not like him, and he did not like her. But that story goes, as time goes on, they start falling in love, and even though Tess wanted to be married quickly, Rolly wasn't feeling that, so he decided to do a promise ring, and later on, they got married at a very young age. And then they had Tess. So Tess is from the early 60s to late 60s. So believe 1961 or 2 to like 1968. And I honestly related to not Tess, excuse me, but Angie. Angie's the name. I related to Angie a lot more than the other 2. Only because it's kind of like a repeat of what's going on in today's world. Angie is very head-on. She's very strong-willed. You cannot tell her no. She has this quota or like this like memo in her in the story where it says like dumb dowdy, which means it's like your doubts are dumb, and whatever your mind is trying to tell you, like don't listen to it. I truly love that scene. I also love the fact that even though her mother does leave because her mother wants a better life for her, actually for herself, and the father and Rolly is so concerned about living in the right ways, and he's so basically content of where he's at. He doesn't want to leave because he thinks if he leaves it's going to be better, and he also thinks that if Tess leaves, then she's basically going to come back, and so she decides to leave and leaves Angie there. And I feel as if during the time when Angie is starting to get like his like the mother, Rolly starts to resent Angie a little bit, in my opinion. But overall, he sees that his daughter is going for a good cause. I love the fact that they talk about sneaking here, SNNC. I can't remember the exact name for it, but it's SNNC. And I also love the fact that Loretta, spoiler alert, she becomes the first woman in her town to be registered to vote. And they tell the story of how, it took amount of time to actually get her to pass the test so she could be registered voter to vote. But even though she did take the test, she still couldn't vote because she had to pay a tax fee. So it's always something going on. But Angie stood her ground. She was like, listen, we came this far. I'm not going back. So whatever we have to do to get my grandmother and other colored people in the city to vote, that's what we're going to do. And she did. So I feel as if, especially with the election coming up in November and everything that's been going on with Black Lives Matter, this book really touches home. Like I said, Angie part really resonated with me because of exactly what was going on during that time, and how, it was like Black people went through a lot to just want to hear their voices and get, just want to hear their voices to vote. So the fact that some people aren't even voting or not even registered to vote is kind of like, in my opinion, a big slap in the face. So if you aren't registered to vote, please vote. And if you want something that is like a little quick read and something that kind of like for your children, I don't have kids, but I would definitely recommend this to the library that I work at, because I work at elementary school. So I definitely would recommend this to my librarian, because this book is definitely needed in the schools today, in my opinion, as well as period, it's just needed. I'll just say that, period. It's really just needed. And if you really want to read something that, that through the eyes between the 1920s, 1960s, through three different generations, highly recommend this book. I went on Goodreads and I think I rated this book 5 out of 5. I looked at the reviews and all of them are basically 5 out of 5 from what I saw. So that's how you know the book is good. I also love the fact that towards the end of the book, they have basically people who set the stage. So it says, Loretta, Rollies, and Angie accounts represent the stories of many sharecroppers who endure an unfair system in which a landowner lets a family use his property in return for a share of crops they harvest. While this seems to be an incredible arrangement, sharecroppers were often beholden to their landlords, which prevented them from securing their own land, livestock, and crops. Sharecroppers worked long breaking hours and were sometimes cheated by landowners who promised wages that they were never paid. Some dishonored family manipulate the scales on which harvest, fruits, vegetables, cotton, and other crops were weighted. So the sharecroppers worked undervalued, and they were forced to keep picking to earn their keep. By working toward voting equality, people like the Littles and others fought to empower sharecroppers. And then it has like a picture below, basically showing you exactly how the sharecroppers were right after slavery. And then it also has another one too, where it says who set the stage, and then it talks about, all these people are mentioned in the book, especially like Emmett Till. This is during Rowley's time. And then you have Charles McLaurin, James Foreman, Martin Luther King, President Lyndon B. Johnson, and Fannie Lou Hamer. All those are during Angie's time. So I love the fact that Andrea talked about it, because during that time it was really huge, especially during like the late early 60s. It was really, really huge for us to, like, African American people to vote, even though the whites did not want us to vote. And we went through like trials and errors to just vote. And I think there was one scene in the book when Loretta and Angie went to vote, and even though Loretta was a little girl, she went with her aunt, who was Loretta, to go vote, and she had to read something. And it tells you in the beginning, I'm not trying to tell all of it, but in the beginning, Loretta basically had to quit school to help her family. So she tells the dude, like, listen, I can't read. Like, I'm being honest with you, I can't read. Like, I had to quit to help my family. And instead of him understanding, he just, like, a big grin on his face, like, oh, okay, well, I don't know why you're here. But because Angie was so power-driven and so, willing to want to help colored people vote, she was like, listen, I'm going to go with you and do this test. Like, I'm not going to tell you the answers, but I'm going to read you the questions, and we go from there. And that's what it took them 6 times to take that test. 6 times. Now, when it's just like you go on a website, it's like a click of a button to register to vote. It took them 6 times. 6 times to register to vote. And then they couldn't even really vote because they had to pay a property tax. So if you're African American and you're not registered to vote, I'm gonna need you to do better. Like, period. Do better. When I read Angie's part, it reminded me of the movie Selma. And if you guys know what Selma is, basically Martin Luther King and his journey on basically how he went through with going to the March on Washington. So I definitely highly recommend that movie. Cause that's when she was talking about Sneak and the people that came and wanted to register to vote, and how a lot of people were a lot of black people at the time were really scared because they didn't know exactly what was going on. They heard stories that if you tried to vote you get killed, and the Ku Klux Klan was really big in that area because they do in Mississippi, so it was like a really rural area when Jim Crow is highly enforced, unlike the northern areas where Angie's mom Tess moved to because she wanted a better life. And Rolly was so stuck in his ways that he decided he didn't want to do that, so he stayed with Angie. So yeah, so I definitely recommend this book to not only just African American people, but actually everybody, especially if you have if you have little ones at your house. Definitely read this book and talk to them, or ask them questions while you're reading the book, because it's really highly recommended. So that was my Loretta Little Looks Back book review. I apologize if this was all over the place, but like I said, I just got done with this book about maybe 5 minutes before I even recorded, and I just needed to get all my thoughts out. So yeah, but thank you once again to Andrea Davis Pickney. Thank you once again to Hero Voices Book Tour for allowing me to read this, and definitely read this when it comes out. I think it comes out later. I think it comes out later this month or sometime next month. So definitely read this when it does. And guys, until then, have faith, have confidence, be you, always love you, and I'll talk to you guys later.